My parents stole my college fund and gave it to my sister's useless boyfriend. Why waste money on a pathetic nobody? My mother snorted. At least he has a future. Unlike you, my father laughed as my sister called me a failure. They watched me walk away with smirks on their faces. But today, my phone exploded with 27 missed calls and desperate, hysterical voicemails. The cornfields of Ohio were my playground, but they also felt like a prison. In our small town, where everyone knew your name and your business, I was the black sheep, the one always trying to break free from the shadow of my perfect sister, Emily. My parents, Robert and Susan, had their eyes set on her, believing she could do no wrong while I was just the pathetic nobody in their eyes. But as I watched our college fund dwindle, funneled into the hands of Emily's scheming boyfriend, Jake, I knew I had to leave. I packed my dreams and my determination, moving to the city where anonymity was a luxury I could afford. There I built a life on my terms, brick by brick, with sweat and tears. But just as my new life was taking shape, a call from home shattered my peace. Jake's latest scheme had collapsed, and with it, my family's world. Now they needed me, and I had to decide if I would be their savior or let them face the consequences of their choices. In the heart of Ohio, where the cornfields stretch, out like an endless sea of green, I grew up in a town where secrets were as rare as a snowless winter. My name is Alex, and in this place, everyone knew everyone else's business, especially mine. My family, well, we were the talk of the town, but not for the reasons you'd hope. My parents, Robert and Susan, were known for their eccentric decisions, like the time they decided to turn our front lawn into a petting zoo. And then there was my sister, Emily, the golden child, who could do no wrong in their eyes. She was the apple of their eye, the one who could charm the feathers off a bird. Me? I was the black sheep, always trying to carve my own path, which often led to conflict at home. The tension was thick, like the humidity before a summer storm, especially when it came to money. My parents had set up a college fund for both Emily and me, but as I grew older, I noticed the fund was dwindling. It wasn't because of my education expenses, oh no. Instead, it was being funneled into supporting Emily's boyfriend, Jake. Jake was a man with no job, no ambition, and a penchant for get-rich-quick schemes that always seemed to end with him needing more money. He was the kind of guy who'd sell you a map to a treasure that didn't exist. One evening, after a particularly heated argument about my future, my mother, with a dismissive snort, said, "Why waste money on a pathetic nobody?" My father laughed, adding, "At least he has a future, unlike you." Emily, standing after that fateful night, I knew I had to leave. The words of my parents, their laughter, and the dismissive way they spoke about my future echoed in my mind. I packed what little I had, my heart heavy but my resolve firm. I moved to the city with nothing but my determination and a small savings I had managed to keep hidden from Jake's greedy hands. The city was a stark contrast to the small town I grew up in. Here, anonymity was a luxury, and I embraced it. I took up odd jobs, anything from serving coffee to designing logos for small businesses. Each day was a struggle, but each small victory felt like a triumph. I was building something of my own, brick by brick, with my own sweat and tears. Meanwhile, back at home, Emily and Jake were living off the remnants of my college fund. Jake's latest venture was some sort of online cryptocurrency trading. My parents, ever the believers in his potential, continued to pour money into his schemes, convinced he was on the cusp of making it big. They saw dollar signs where I saw only a void. I kept in touch with Mia, my childhood friend who had always been there for me. She would occasionally update me on the family drama. "You won't believe it, Alex," she'd say over the phone, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Jake's now talking about investing in some blockchain technology. They're sinking more money into it, all while dismissing your accomplishments like they're nothing." I'd listen, a mix of frustration and relief washing over me. Frustration because they couldn't see through Jake's facade, and relief because I was finally free from their shadow. My life was mine to shape. One day, while working late at the tech startup, I stumbled upon an opportunity. The company was looking for someone to spearhead a new project that could potentially revolutionize digital marketing. I pitched an idea, combining my graphic design skills with innovative marketing strategies. To my surprise, they loved it, and I was promoted to lead the project. The thrill of my promotion was still fresh when my phone began to buzz incessantly. It was Mia calling to tell me something urgent. Her voice was a mix of panic and excitement, breathless as if she'd run. A marathon. Alex, you won't believe this. Jake's latest scheme has collapsed. He's taken off with all the money, including what was left of your college fund. My heart sank. The betrayal stung, not just because of the money, but because it was yet another confirmation of Jake's true character. But there was more to this story than just Jake's betrayal. Mia continued, her words tumbling out in a rush. He's not just gone, Alex. He's left a trail of chaos. Emily's devastated, and your parents, they're beside themselves. They've been trying to cover up the mess, but it's all coming out now. The police are involved. The implications were staggering. My family, once the epitome of eccentricity, now faced the harsh reality of Jake's schemes. I could picture the scene. My mother's face, usually set in a mask of superiority, now crumpled in despair, and my father, his laughter replaced by a heavy silence. I felt a mix of emotions. There was anger, certainly, but also a strange sense of vindication. All those years of being dismissed, of being the pathetic nobody in their eyes, and now they were reaping what they had sown. But there's something else, Alex. Mia's voice dropped to a whisper, as if she was afraid someone might overhear. I found out something. Something about Jake's business partners. They're not just investors. They're involved in some shady dealings. This could get really ugly. The gravity of the situation hit me. Jake's schemes weren't just about swindling money. They were. The news hit me like a ton of bricks, but it also ignited a fire within me. I decided it was time to confront my family, not out of anger, but to show them the path I had chosen was not only viable but superior. I drove back home, the city skyline fading behind me, replaced by the familiar, yet now alien, small town landscape. Upon arriving, I found my parents in a state of shock, their faces pale. Emily was inconsolable, her dreams of a lavish lifestyle shattered. They were desperate, their world crumbling as they realized Jake was not the golden goose they thought he was. I walked into the living room, the air thick with tension. My mother, Susan, looked up at me, her eyes red from crying. Alex, she whispered, her voice breaking. How could we have been so blind? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Mom, Dad, Emily, I know this is hard, but I need you to understand something. My father, Robert, sat with his head in his hands, not looking up. Emily, her mascara running, stared at me with a mix of confusion and betrayal. I've built something. Real in the city, I continued, my voice steady. Something that doesn't rely on empty promises or schemes. I've worked hard, and I've succeeded. Not for fame or fortune, but for integrity and self-respect. Emily's voice cracked as she spoke. But what about us, Alex? What are we supposed to do now? I looked at her, seeing the fear and the loss. You'll rebuild, I said softly. But this time, on your terms, not Jake's, and I'm here to help. I've learned a lot, and I can share that with you. The room was silent, the only sound the ticking of the old grandfather clock. Then my father finally looked up, his eyes meeting mine. We've made mistakes, Alex, big ones. But seeing you now, maybe we were wrong about a lot of things. I nodded, feeling a strange sense of closure. I've got something to show you. I sat them down, the tension in the room thick. I've come to tell you something, I began, my voice steady. While you were betting on Jake, I was building something real. My project at the startup? It's now a multi-million-dollar venture. I've made more in the last year than Jake could ever dream of. The room fell silent. My mother's eyes widened and my father's jaw dropped. Emily looked at me, a mix of disbelief and something akin to respect. I didn't need your money, I continued. But you took it from me, and now you've lost it all. I'm here to offer you something you never gave me, a chance to start over. I paused, letting my words sink in. The air was heavy, not just with the weight of their loss, but with the realization of my success. But my offer comes with a condition, I said, watching their expressions shift from shock to curiosity. You see, I've learned a lot about trust, about integrity, and about the value of hard work. So here's the deal. I'll help you rebuild, but you have to work for it. No handouts, no shortcuts. You'll work under me, in my company, starting from the ground up. You'll earn every penny just like I did. My mother's face flushed with a mix of embarrassment and defiance. You expect us to work for you? After everything? Yes, I replied, my voice firm. Because that's what I had to do. You'll learn the business from the bottom, understand the value of every dollar, and maybe, just maybe, you'll see the world through my eyes for once. Emily's voice was barely a whisper. And if we refuse? Then you're on your own, I said, the finality in my tone echoing in the quiet room. I won't watch you fall again without trying to help, but I won't enable the same mistakes either. My father, who had been silent, finally spoke, his voice hoarse. We've always underestimated you, Alex. Maybe it's time we listened. I nodded. I'll help you recover, but on one condition, I said, looking each of them in the eye. You acknowledge my success, and you support my decisions from now on. No more favoritism, no more belittling. We start anew, as equals. The silence was broken by my father's nod, followed by my mother's tearful agreement. Emily, still processing, finally spoke. I'm sorry, Alex. I was wrong about you. In the following months, I helped my family rebuild, not with handouts, but with opportunities. I invested in Emily's education, showing her the value of hard work. My parents learned to appreciate my achievements, and slowly, our family dynamics shifted towards mutual respect. The phone calls and voicemails from that day were a turning point. They were desperate, yes, but they also marked the beginning of a new chapter for us all. I set Emily up with an internship at my company, where she could learn the ropes from the ground up. She started in the marketing department, handling the grunt work, the kind that teaches you the real value of every dollar. She was hesitant at first, but as she saw the fruits of her labor, her attitude began to change. She worked late nights, sometimes alongside me, and we talked, really talked, for the first time in years. My parents, too, came to work for me. My father, with his knack for numbers, found a place in the finance department. He was meticulous, and his experience was invaluable, but he had to earn his keep just like everyone else. My mother, with her flair for the dramatic, was put in charge of client relations. She had to learn to charm without the pretense, to build relationships, based on trust, not manipulation. As we worked together, the old resentments began to fade. My parents saw the integrity in my work, the respect I commanded from my team. They saw how I treated everyone fairly, how I valued hard work over empty promises. One evening, after a particularly successful product launch, we sat in my office, the city skyline painting a backdrop of twinkling lights. You've done well, Alex, my father said. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.